boss quit after he made me sing while sick. The stale beer smell was a permanent fixture, clinging to everything in the rusty mug like a stubborn ghost. I'd gotten used to it, same as I'd gotten used to the flickering neon sign outside and the way Mark, our bandleader and owner, would always accidentally cut me off mid-sentence to tell some rambling, self-aggrandizing anecdote. I loved singing, I really did. It was the only thing that made this small-town existence feel bearable. But singing backup vocals to Mark's off-key renditions of Bon Jovi in a bar that served lukewarm beer and questionable nachos was starting to wear thin. Then came the battle of the bands. A chance. A real, honest-to-God chance to get out of this dive and play somewhere, anywhere. That wasn't the Rusty Mug. The winner got a paid gig at a regional music festival, press coverage, the whole shebang. For once, Mark seemed genuinely motivated. "Sarah," he'd said, slapping me on the back a little too hard. "This is it. Our ticket to the big time. We need you at your best." Famous last words. The first sign of trouble was a tickle in my throat. I ignored it, chalking it up to the dust and cigarette smoke that permeated the rusty mug. But the next day, the tickle had morphed into a full-blown scratch, and my nose was running like a faucet. I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. I called Mark, my voice already sounding like a frog gargling gravel. "Mark, I think I'm getting sick. I don't know if I can make rehearsal tonight." "Sick?" he scoffed. "Sarah, this is the battle of the bands. We can't afford for you to be sick. Pop some pills, drink some tea, whatever you gotta do. Just be there." I tried to reason with him, explaining that my voice was shot and that pushing myself would only make things worse. But Mark wouldn't budge. He launched into a tirade about how much time and effort he put into the band, how this was his dream, and how I was letting him down. The guilt trip was nauseating and, frankly, pretty effective. I caved. Rehearsal was a disaster. My voice cracked on every high note, and I was coughing so hard I could barely breathe. David, our guitarist and the only genuinely decent guy in the band, looked at me with concern. "Sarah, you should go home," he whispered during a break. "You sound terrible." "Mark's being a jerk. Tell me something I don't know," I croaked, accepting the water bottle he offered. Mark, of course, overheard. "David, mind your own business. Sarah's a professional. She can handle it." Professional? I was getting paid a pittance to sing in a dive bar while battling a fever. Professional wasn't exactly the word I'd use. That night, lying in bed with a pounding headache and a mountain of tissues, something snapped. I was tired of being Mark's doormat, tired of sacrificing my health and well-being for his ego. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I was going to make him regret ever pressuring me to perform while sick. The plan started forming in my head, a slow burn of righteous anger simmering beneath my feverish haze. The next few days were a blur of cough drops, decongestants, and increasingly passive-aggressive interactions with Mark. He kept pushing me, demanding more from me even as my voice deteriorated further. I pretended to cooperate, subtly planting seeds of doubt and discord within the band. I accidentally messed up Mark's guitar solo cues, suggesting harmonies that made him sound off-key and subtly highlighting his own vocal shortcomings during practice. Emily, a regular at the Rusty Mug who always sat at the corner of the bar nursing a glass of wine, noticed the tension. She was a quiet observer, but she had sharp eyes and a kind heart. One evening after rehearsal, she caught me as I was leaving. "Sarah," she said, her voice low, "you look awful. He's really putting you through the ringer, isn't he?" I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. "He doesn't care about me, Emily. He just cares about winning." "Well, honey," she said, patting my hand, "sometimes you gotta fight fire with fire. Don't let him walk all over you." Her words gave me a little boost of confidence. I wasn't alone in seeing Mark for who he really was. Brenda, the bartender, was another source of quiet support. She'd seen it all at the Rusty Mug, enduring years of drunken brawls, bad karaoke, and Mark's endless stream of BS. One night, as I was grabbing a glass of water, she leaned in and whispered, "You know, honey, Mark's been through this before. He had another band back in the day. They were supposed to be the next big thing. Then the lead singer quit right before a big show. Said Mark was impossible to work with." She gave me a knowing look. History repeats itself. The battle of the bands arrived like a looming storm cloud. I felt like death warmed over, my head throbbing, my throat burning, and my voice reduced to a raspy whisper. But I was ready. Backstage, Mark was buzzing with nervous energy, pacing back and forth and barking orders. He looked at me, his eyes narrowed. "Sarah, you look terrible, but you better give it your all tonight. This is our chance." "Don't worry, Mark," I said, my voice a strained whisper. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." When we took the stage, the crowd was a mix of supportive regulars and curious newcomers. As we launched into our first song, a cover of "Livin' on a Prayer," I could feel the energy in the room, but I also felt the strain in my voice. It was weak, shaky, and nowhere near its usual power. Mark, oblivious as ever, was strutting around the stage like a peacock, basking in the spotlight. That's when I began implementing my plan. I started subtly altering the lyrics, turning them into veiled insults directed at Mark. Instead of singing, "You live on dreams on prayer," I sang, "You live on ego and hot air." Nobody seemed to notice at first, but I could see the confused look on David's face. As the set progressed, I ramped up the sabotage. During our rendition of "Don't Stop Believin'," I feigned a dramatic coughing fit mid-song, clutching my throat and stumbling backwards. "I can't," I gasped, collapsing onto a stool. "I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm just too sick." Mark insisted I perform, even though I told him I wasn't feeling well. He said it was too important. He said he needed me. I let the tears flow freely, playing the part of the wronged singer to the hilt. The crowd, sensing the tension and seeing my distress, started to murmur. Some people even booed Mark. He looked like he'd been slapped in the face. "Sarah, what are you doing?" he hissed, his face red with anger. "I'm telling the truth, Mark," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm telling everyone how you treat people, how you don't care about anyone but yourself." Then, in a moment of inspired defiance, I stood up, took a deep breath, and launched into an impromptu a cappella performance of Hallelujah. It was a song I'd always loved, a song that resonated with my soul. Despite my weakened voice, I poured every ounce of emotion into it, singing with a raw vulnerability that I'd never allowed myself to express before. The bar went silent. You could hear a pin drop. As I sang, I looked directly at Mark, letting him see the pain and resentment that I'd been holding back for so long. When I finished, the crowd erupted in applause. People were cheering, whistling, and even crying. It was the most incredible feeling I'd ever experienced. I'd finally found my voice, not just as a singer, but as a person. Mark, on the other hand, was a mess. He was pale, shaking, and surrounded by a chorus of boos. The judges looked visibly unimpressed. Unsurprisingly, we didn't win the battle of the bands. But in that moment, it didn't matter. I'd already won. Backstage, Mark cornered me, his eyes blazing with fury. "You ruined everything," he screamed. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." "No, Mark," I said calmly. "You ruined everything. You embarrassed yourself. I just helped everyone see it." David and the other band members stood there, looking uncomfortable but also strangely relieved. They'd seen the truth, and they couldn't unsee it. The next day, the Rusty Mug was buzzing with gossip. Everyone was talking about my performance, about Mark's behavior, about the band's dramatic implosion. The negative publicity was devastating for the bar's business. A week later, I received a text message from David. Mark quit. He sold the Rusty Mug and moved out of town. I wasn't surprised. Mark couldn't handle the humiliation. He couldn't handle being exposed for the insecure, narcissistic bully that he was. I left the band soon after that. It was time for me to move on, to pursue my own musical aspirations without Mark holding me back. David joined me, and we started working on our own project, a more soulful, authentic sound that reflected our shared passion for music. We found a new drummer and a talented bass player, and we started playing gigs at other venues in the area. The last time I saw the Rusty Mug, the neon sign was dark, and the building looked even more dilapidated than before. But I didn't feel sad. I felt a sense of closure, a sense of freedom. I'd survived my time in that toxic environment, and I'd emerged stronger and more confident than ever before. A few months later, we landed a gig at a music festival downtown, As I stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand, I looked out at the crowd and took a deep breath. This was it, my chance. And this time, I was ready. I sang my heart out that night, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive. I could almost smell stale beer in the air, but this time I knew everything would be all right.